Good evening, everybody. Happy Monday the 8th, and welcome to the Seabright to Manasquan, New Jersey Coastal Storm Risk Management General Reevaluation Study. This meeting here is for your benefit. It's a public information session to talk about the our general reevaluation study and the draft integrated report that was released for public review in October 24th. My audio cut out when someone joined. Apologies for that. As many of you are aware, there is an existing Army Corps New Jersey DEP project along the shoreline that is periodically replenished. And this study aims to investigate and determine if there's a technically feasible, environmentally acceptable, and economically justifiable recommendation for improvements to that project. So before we get started, for your situational awareness, this meeting is being recorded. A copy of the recording will be posted to our website in the coming days for your viewing pleasure. Now, I would like to introduce our project manager, Mr. Jason Shea. Jason?
Thanks, Karen. I'm Jason Shea, project manager for the Army Corps of Engineers. For all things Seabright to Manasquan, this meeting will be focused only on the study or reevaluation of the existing project. But should you have any questions on anything else, you can reach out to me, directly after this meeting or anytime for Seabright to manage Manasquan beach replenishment project, the borrower area study, the upcoming hotspot analysis, or any general questions related to Seabright to Manasquan with the Army Corps. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Jason. All right, now I would like to give our non-federal sponsor, the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, a chance to speak. So Mr. Dennis Reines is the Director of Division of Resilience Engineering and Construction. Over to you, Dennis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dennis Reines, Director of the Division of Resilience Engineering and Construction, as Karen just stated. But I'm housed within the Watershed and Land Management Program here at the DEP. The DEP is the non-federal sponsor on the existing federal Sandy Hook to Manasquan Inlet Coastal Storm Risk Management Project. And we're also the non-federal sponsor on this general reevaluation report effort we're discussing today. But what does the non-federal sponsor mean? The Corps will be mentioning that throughout the process. It's just a fancy way of saying we are the partners with the Corps of Engineers on this study, we at the DEP. We're grateful for that partnership and the expertise from the Army Corps of Engineers and the team members from the North Atlantic Division, including the New York District and the Norfolk District. I would also like to thank my team at the Office of Coastal Engineering, in particular Chris Constantino, Sarah Bates, and Glenn Golden, for their efforts to guide this important study. We look forward to this evening's presentation by the Corps and continue to support their efforts. But I also look forward to your comments and feedback during the public comment period, which we're in now. The next step will be evaluating your input and working with the Corps to consider and incorporate your comments, when feasible, into this tentatively selected plan. Implementation of this project will further our multifaceted flood resilience efforts along the New Jersey coast in light of increasing storm intensity and rising sea levels. Again, I wish to thank you for joining us this evening and taking time out of your evening. I will now hand this presentation back to Karen, and thank you again, Karen.
Thank you, Dennis. All right, so next slide, please. So again, thank you for participating. Public feedback is an important part of our study process. And the purpose, again, is to give you information and to hear your feedback about the Seabright to Manasquan Coastal Storm Risk Management General Reevaluation Study. Again, the study's purpose is really to investigate and determine if there is an opportunity for us to have federal participation in improvements to the existing project. This presentation is an overview of what is included in the draft integrated report. Both the report and the presentation describe the analyses we conducted to formulate and evaluate the alternatives and ultimately select our tentatively selected plan. After our short presentation, we will have a question and answer session, and this is an opportunity for you to ask questions to gain clarity on anything you hear today or anything that you read in the report. We encourage you to submit any comments or feedback you have in writing by either email or letter. We would love to hear your questions and feedback about the information shared today, and we will use your feedback to determine our path forward. So logistics of how to ask questions. We first encourage you to use the chat function. So on Teams, on the lower left-hand side of your screen, you should see a chat feature, or it could be on the top as it is on my screen. But if you click on the chat, you will be able to write down your comments and questions into the chat, and the team will either directly write a response into the chat live, or we'll wait to the end and we'll read your question and then give you a verbal response. Assuming time allows, after we go through the questions in the chat, there will be an opportunity for attendees to raise their virtual hand and ask their questions or provide feedback using their microphone. That microphone is also on your screen on either the lower or upper portion. But first, please, we ask you to kindly raise your hand. All right. Great. Thank you. Next slide. So actually with that, I would like to turn it over to our lead planner, Mr. Andrew Seaman. Andrew.
Thanks so much, Karen, and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. Next slide, please. To start today, I will cover a few details on the study's authorization and project history. A report recommending federal action for coastal storm risk management in Monmouth County and Ocean County, New Jersey, was submitted to Congress in 1956. The original construction project was authorized under the Rivers and Harbors Act of July 3, 1958, as modified by the Water Resources Development Acts, or WRDA, of 1986, 1988, and 1992. Following authorization, the construction of the existing project was initiated in 1994. Construction of Section 1 was completed in 1998, with the exception of Elberon, Deal, Allenhurst, and Lock Harbor, which was completed in 2016. Construction of Section 2 was completed in the year 2000. The existing project, consisting of a berm at plus 9.3 feet and AVD 88, is renourished periodically to help manage coastal storm risks to the community. Historically, the existing project has been performing well as designed and adequately managing coastal storm risk. However, the resulting damages from Hurricane Sandy in 2012 has led the team to assess whether there are potential modifications to be made to the existing project to better manage the risk of inundation and to ensure the project can continue to be responsive to the needs of the communities it serves. This general reevaluation report serves this purpose and allows us to assess the potential improvements to the existing project. Formally kicking off this effort was the signing of the Feasibility Cost Sharing Agreement, or FCSA, by the United States Army Corps of Engineers and New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection on October 18, 2022. This feasibility study is 100% federally funded under the Disaster Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2022. Next slide, please. Shown here is a snapshot of our study schedule to help visualize where we are at in our study process. I won't spend too much time recapping each milestone, but I think it is important to highlight the series of milestones throughout the feasibility schedule. The first two are the alternatives milestone, where we have the scope of our study and analyses finalized, and our tentatively selected plan milestone, where based on our evaluation of alternatives, we present the plan that we think is best. The tentatively selected plan is the plan that is detailed in the draft integrated report. The third milestone on the schedule here is the command validation milestone. This occurs after we have received public and agency feedback and we determine how to proceed with the study. As shown, we are in the middle of our feasibility study process, and while we have conducted the evaluation and comparison of our alternatives, we are holding these public meetings to get your feedback. We will take all of the comments and feedback into consideration for the command validation milestone, and once we have approval and concurrence on our path forward, we will optimize our plan and submit a final integrated report for state and agency feedback. Assuming we find an acceptable and justified project, this study will result in a chief's report, which is a recommendation to Congress on authorizing the proposed project. This final component of the study is expected in July of 2027. Next slide, please. Now, what is the existing project? The existing project provides beach erosion control and coastal flood risk reduction for the highly populated communities and infrastructure along the 21 miles of Atlantic coastline in Monmouth County, New Jersey. The project area is divided into two sections. Section 1, which extends for 12 miles from Seabright to Lock Arbor, and Section 2, which includes the 9 miles from Asbury Park to Manasquan. The existing project maintains a 100-foot wide berm at plus 9.3 feet NAVD 88 and is authorized for a 6-year nourishment cycle over a 50-year period. The renourishment periods are currently authorized through 2047 in Section 1 and through 2049 in Section 2. Next slide, please. We'll now take a look at the scope and focus of this study. During the early stages of this study, two main problems and opportunities for improvement were identified. To address inundation risk in Section 2, which leaves people and property at risk of damage, as well as the increased rates of erosion, commonly referred to as erosion hotspots in Elberon and Monmouth Beach within Section 1. As the study advanced, measures specific to addressing the erosion problems in Section 1 were found to be better fit to be addressed within the existing authority. As a result, the focus of this GRR is on Section 2, and a separate engineering documentation report will be used to document and address the erosion problem in Section 1, specifically in Monmouth Beach. The team will continue monitoring the hotspot in Elberon to determine whether further action is required following recent renourishments. For this general reevaluation effort, the study focuses on flood risk in Section 2 and aims to investigate and determine if there is a technically feasible, environmentally acceptable, and economically justifiable recommendation for federal participation to improve the existing project in Section 2. Shifting now to our plan formulation process. The foundation of the Corps' planning process is the identification of a study's problems, opportunities, objectives, and constraints. These parameters provide the study a direction and focus not only at the start, but also over the course of the study to ensure the project remains on its intended track. Our list of identified problems include risk to human life, health, and safety from coastal storms, and storm damages due to erosion, inundation, and waves in Section 2. As a result of the identified problems, a series of opportunities for the study include finding ways to better manage the system while considering regional interactions, and to update the existing project for the latest technology, engineering standards, and guidance. Further, we seek to recommend a solution that could potentially benefit the environment and improve recreation. Our objectives describe the results we aim to achieve by taking advantage of the previously identified opportunities. Our objectives are to manage the direct and indirect risks to human life, health, and safety caused by coastal storms, and second, to manage structure damage and other national economic development impacts caused by coastal storms, including flooding and erosion. Our constraints are defined as things we need to avoid doing or cannot change while meeting the objectives. The study's primary constraint is that a potential solution cannot increase erosion rates, and we cannot reduce public access. While formulating, we considered impacts to public access, community resilience, environmental and cultural resources, as well as utilities. Next slide, please. Central to the Corps' plan formulation process is the comparison of alternatives to a baseline condition. The study aims to investigate incremental improvements to add to the currently authorized project. This study assumes the existing project will continue into the future through its authorized nourishment period. If this study does not find an acceptable alternative, the existing project would continue to be replenished periodically based on needs and funding availability. To address coastal storm risk in the study area, the team coordinated with New Jersey DEP and started with a series of management measures which are the building blocks for our alternative development. Measures were compiled and screened based on their ability to meet study objectives and avoid constraints, their technical feasibility and environmental acceptability, and likelihood of economic justification. Once screened, the retained management measures were then used to formulate alternatives. And following alternative formulation, the alternatives are then evaluated based on their completeness, effectiveness, efficiency, and acceptability. And finally, the plan formulation process considers all beneficial or adverse effects to the four accounts identified in the Principles and Guidelines of 1983. Those include the National Economic Development, or NED, Regional Economic Development, or RED, Environmental Quality, EQ, and other social effects, OSE, which includes life safety, recreation, and community resilience. Looking now at our list of measures considered. These management measures are the building blocks for our alternative plans, which I will cover more in depth in upcoming slides. Of the management measures identified, they include a series of structural, nature-based, and non-structural measures. Many of these structural measures may be more familiar, including dunes, seawalls, groins, and breakwaters. The team also evaluated a series of non-structural solutions. Non-structural measures are those that can be applied to a specific structure and/or its contents that prevent or provide resistance to damage from flooding. Think of elevating a house to a specific elevation or raising outdoor utilities to be less at risk to coastal flooding damages. The team also looked at artificial reefs as a potential nature-based solution. The screening process took into account the measure's anticipated coastal storm risk management benefits and cost effectiveness. Of the measures considered, berm modifications, dunes, and non-structural measures were retained to initiate our alternative formulation process. We'll now take a look at our alternative formulation and selection. As is standard, a no-action plan is included to establish a baseline for alternatives comparison. In this case, the no-action plan is the existing project continuing as authorized through 2049 in Section 2. There were a total of 12 berm and dune combinations considered within the initial array, with dune crest elevation heights ranging between plus 14 feet and plus 20 feet NAVD 88, and berm widths ranging between 40 and 140 feet. A non-structural alternative was also included within the initial array, which consisted of elevating residential structures. Another screening process was performed to help narrow down the list of alternatives and to get us closer to selecting a plan. The alternatives highlighted are those that were advanced to the final array based on their ability to manage coastal storm risk while also considering overall costs. Within the final array is Alternative 3E, a 16-foot crest elevation dune, 100-foot berm width. Alternative 3I, a 16-foot crest elevation dune, 60-foot berm width. And Alternative 3J, an 18-foot crest elevation dune with 60-foot berm width. Shown on this table are the costs and benefits associated with the final array of alternatives, given the intermediate sea level change condition. This table includes the final array of alternatives, estimated renourishment volumes, and incremental first costs relative to the existing project. Incremental costs and benefits are presented as average annualized equivalent, or AAEQ, to demonstrate the anticipated annual costs and benefits above the existing project. And the resulting net benefits and benefit cost ratio, or BCRs, are shown at the bottom of this table. A BCR above 1 means that the benefits outweigh the cost and is what we here at USACE consider as economically justified. Looking at NED benefits alone, alternative 3E is economically justified with an annualized net benefit of $150,000 and a resulting BCR of 1.06. While not economically justified are alternatives 3I with negative $990,000 in net benefits and a 0.3 BCR, and alternative 3J with net benefits of negative $122,000 and a BCR of 0.96. While the team formulated to the intermediate sea level change scenario, we did consider the potential benefits of both the low and high sea level change conditions. The anticipated benefits were found to be lower given the low sea level change scenario and higher NED benefits given the high sea level change scenario. The study team evaluated the contributions of each alternative in the final array to the national economy, regional economy, environmental quality, and other social effects. The alternatives were assessed based on their completeness, effectiveness, efficiency, and acceptability in providing incremental improvements to the existing project. Again, this is captured by comparing alternatives 3E, 3I, and 3J to alternative 1, the no action plan. Therefore, while the existing authorized project is performing as designed and is effective at managing coastal storm risk in the area, it does not contribute to managing incremental risk. As shown previously, alternative 3E is the only alternative providing positive net benefits within the National Economic Development Account and is the only alternative that is economically justified. Regional economic development effects are the impacts of project spending either directly or indirectly on the local economy. All alternatives contribute positively to the regional economy, for example, by providing jobs, with both alternatives 3E and 3J contributing similarly to the RED account. Environmental quality, or EQ, are the non-monetary effects on significant natural and cultural resources. Alternative 3E keeps the berm width the same as the existing project, while alternatives 3I and 3J propose a reduced berm width of 60 feet. It was determined that all alternatives would have minor impacts to essential fish habitat. However, recovery of these resources is expected and the impact would be temporary. As a result of their proposed reduced berm width, alternatives 3I and 3J would have moderate impacts to piping plover and to sea beach amaranth. This is due to the decreased berm width for piping plovers to forage, breed, and nest, and available space for sea beach amaranth to spread. The no action alternative and alternative 3E would maintain the current width of the berm, which maximizes the amount of preferred habitats for species like piping plovers and sea beach amaranth. Given the reduced berm widths within alternatives 3I and 3J, moderate impacts were assessed while only temporary impacts for 3E, which were deemed temporary and mitigable. Alternatives 3E, 3I, and 3J all contribute positively to life safety and community resilience. The team assessed potential viewshed impacts as a result of the proposed dune in each of the alternatives in the final array. More details on the viewshed impacts will be covered in upcoming slides. Shown in the lower portion of this table, of the 4 P&G criteria, alternatives 3I and 3J met all but the efficiency criteria. Efficiency was assessed via BCR of each alternative. Since 3I and 3J have BCRs less than 1, both alternatives were found not to be efficient. Otherwise, all alternatives were deemed to be complete, effective, and acceptable to current laws. Alternative 3E is the only alternative deemed complete, effective, efficient, acceptable, and economically justified. As a result of these analyses and in coordination with New Jersey DEP, alternative 3E has been selected as the tentatively selected plan. Now, for more details on the tentatively selected plan, we'll start by taking a look at the next slide. Our tentatively selected plan consists of a maintained berm width of 100 feet with a proposed plus 16-foot crest elevation dune from Asbury Park to Manasquan. This plan would require an estimated additional 1.1 million cubic yards of material for initial construction, and with only minimal fill required to be maintained during following renourishments, matching the same 6-year period of the existing project. To maintain the 100-foot berm width, the proposed plan would require the seaward extent of the beach to extend 52 feet beyond the existing berm. As mentioned previously, the result of a maintained 100-foot berm width would be no impacts to recreation. The tentatively selected plan provides enhanced life safety as a result of its ability to manage coastal storm risk, and investigations at the nearby Barrow area are ongoing. The outcome will help determine the appropriate source of fill material for construction. Now, throughout the presentation, there has been a lot of reference to the dune's crest elevation and berm height, all in reference to the NAVD 88 datum. In order to better understand what the proposed dune may look like at a given location, and to better understand what plus 16 feet NAVD 88 means, we have prepared a few draft design renderings to better visualize the proposed dune. The upcoming draft renderings depict the height above ground of the proposed dune at a given location. From Asbury Park to Manasquan, the beach conditions can vary quite a bit. In some areas, there are existing locally maintained dunes, where in neighboring towns, there are no dunes. Generally, due to the plus 9.3 feet NAVD 88 berm height, relative height above ground will range between 0 and 7 feet to the top of the proposed dune. So in places where the beach elevation is 10 feet, the top of the proposed dune would be approximately 6 feet higher than the current beach elevation. Draft renderings are for visualization and communication purposes only. They are based on historic survey data and do not represent exact dune crest elevations and current berm conditions. The renderings also do not account for the exact width of the proposed dunes, and they were created solely to demonstrate the height. Since we are in the feasibility phase, these renderings visualize early stages of design and are artistic interpretations of the approximate height above ground. Further, these are subject to change based on plan optimization and public feedback. The first example here is a view looking towards the beach from the boardwalk in Avon by the Sea near Garfield Avenue. Based on the historic survey data, the ground elevation on the beach is approximately 10 feet NAVD 88. Accounting for the approximate height above ground, the top of the dune without plantings would be roughly 6 feet higher than the shown elevation on the beach. Again, this is an artistic interpretation of what the proposed dune may look like at this location in Avon. Next slide, please. Next up, we have a draft rendering of the proposed dune in Seagirt near Brooklyn Boulevard. The existing condition in Seagirt includes a series of intermittent, locally maintained dunes. These are considered intermittent due to the gaps between the dunes, which are used as beach access points. The proposed plan accounts for a continuous dune system with on-grade beach access, as shown in the above right photo. That example demonstrates a beach access point in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and commonly used across beaches in southern New Jersey. For portions of the project area with varying levels of dunes in place already, the proposed dune may not appear as drastic. We also want to note that in this specific instance, the intent of the rendering is not to show where beach access will or will not be, rather to demonstrate what a continuous dune will look like after a few seasons. Next slide, please. Next up, we now take a look at a view along the asphalt boardwalk in Manasquan near Ocean Avenue. With an approximate ground elevation of 13 feet, to meet a proposed 16-foot crest elevation dune would require an additional 3 feet above ground, While the height of the snow fencing may vary at different parts of the beach, this rendering shows the top of the dune to be above the top of the height of this section of fencing. The plantings shown again depict the plantings likely after a few seasons of growth and does not depict what the dune will look like following initial construction. And similar to the example shown for Seagirt, keep in mind the on-grade beach access points in Manasquan and in Manasquan and in locations throughout the project area. Next slide, please. And finally, a view from the beach looking west in Manasquan near Riverside Drive. With a ground elevation of 11 feet from the position where the photo was taken, the top of the proposed dune would be approximately 4 feet higher than the existing beach elevation. These handful of examples show how the perceived height of the proposed dune will vary based on current conditions. And keep in mind the height above ground range between 0 and 7 feet. The existing project maintains the beach's elevation between 9 and 10 feet. So in areas with no dune or areas with elevations closer to the existing authorized height, we can expect the height above ground to be closer to 6 feet or 7 feet. And for the beaches with intermittent dunes in place, the additional height may be minimal. I'll now hand it off to our environmental team lead, Katie Amir, to present details on the study's NEPA compliance, environmental considerations, and a brief overview of the cultural resources effects assessment. Katie, over to you.
Good evening. As a part of compliance with NEPA, we must demonstrate compliance with multiple laws, executive orders, and regulations, including but not limited to the Clean Air Act, Act, Magnuson-Stevens Fishery Conservation and Management Act, the Essential Fish Habitat Amendment, and Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. These laws and regulations are addressed in the draft report and the appendices, which were released on October 24th of 2025. These appendices go into more detail about the biological assessments and the ongoing coordination with both National Marine Fisheries Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, as well as the programmatic agreement to be amended with the New Jersey SHPO. Next slide, please. As part of the Endangered Species Act compliance, there are 8 species managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, including the piping plover, red knot, and sea beach amaranth, which do have a high likelihood of being within the project area. And there are 7 species managed by the National Marine Fisheries Service, including 2 species of whales, 4 species of turtles, and the Atlantic sturgeon. Next slide, please. The district has performed cultural resources effect assessment and has made the determination that the project has the potential to adversely affect several historic properties and 1 historic district based on the proximity to the dune system, including Ocean Grove Camp Meeting Association Historic District Boardwalk and Pier, the Asbury Park Convention Hall, Howard Johnson Pavilion, the Asbury Casino and Carousel. The district is coordinating these effects with the New Jersey SHPO and other interested parties with the release of the draft report, proposing to amend the existing programmatic agreement for the project to establish a process for avoiding, minimizing, and mitigating effects. And back to Andrew.
Thanks, Katie. So what's next for the study and where do we go from here? The draft Integrated General Reevaluation Report is out for public and agency review through December 23rd, 2025. We will evaluate those comments and confirm with New Jersey DEP and the Chief of Engineers on the path forward and whether Alternative 3E remains the plan we want to pursue. The team will then refine and optimize the project based on feedback and the agreed upon path forward. A final Integrated General Reevaluation Report will be submitted for state and agency as well as Washington level reviews. A Chief's report recommending authorization of the project will be sent to Congress. If authorized and appropriated for by both federal and non-federal entities and agreements are executed, detailed design of the project would then begin. A few tentative dates are shown subject to timely authorization, appropriations, and agreements. It accounts for the pre-construction, engineering, and design phase through 2028, and construction to begin around 2031. So in closing, here's a brief recap. Again, the tentatively selected plan specifies a plus 16-foot crest elevation dune and 100-foot berm width, inclusive of Asbury Park and south through Manasquan, New Jersey. The tentatively selected plan is draft, and details are subject to change based both on new information and your feedback. Since this project has not yet been approved or funded by the United States Congress, the state of New Jersey, or local governments, there is no impending construction or permitting for the proposed improvements. The continued nourishment of the existing project will not be impacted by the study, and all nourishment activities within the existing project area will continue to be based on needs and funding availability. Release of the draft integrated report provides a formal opportunity for public and agency coordination, and we want to hear your questions and feedback about the information shared today. As Katie highlighted, the study's environmental coordination is ongoing, and New Jersey DEP supports the release of this document for further feedback and public comments. And that concludes this evening's presentation. Again, as of today, December 8th, there are 15 days left of the 60-day comment period. You can access the report and associated appendices on the study website at the link shown on this slide, or by scanning the QR code on the right hand of this slide as well. Feel free to reach out to us at our team by sending us an email or using the mailing address provided on the website. Thank you again for joining this evening and for your patience. It is now time for questions, and I'll hand it back to Karen to kick us off on the Q&A. Karen?